A wolf pack blocked the path of a train, but instead of wanting to hurt the driver, they led him to a shocking discovery instead. Not many people would say they would sacrifice themselves for the sake of helping someone else, and it's even more shocking to imagine a wild animal doing it for a human they don't even know. So when this wolf pack jumped in front of a train, the driver was shocked to see why they had done it. Dennis was a railway worker in a small village. His route was only a small one between a couple of local villages and the nearby city, but he loved it nonetheless. The tracks took him through the local woods, and it was a beautiful sight to journey through. Dennis had first started liking trains when he was just a little boy, as his father and his grandfather had been train drivers themselves and would often take the young boy on journeys with them as they did their rounds. As he got older, he soon realized that the local railway depot was the only real source of stable income, and so he decided to follow in his father's footsteps. When he was old enough, Dennis moved away to the local city to attend college so that he could study to become an engineer, just like his father and his grandfather did. He did this as he knew that by getting the qualifications, he would be able to earn a bit more money at the rail depot. After graduating with a degree in engineering, Dennis was offered a few jobs in some of the larger and busiest stations in the city. However, he did not enjoy the fast-paced lifestyle of the city, nor how overcrowded it was, so Dennis decided to return to his hometown to work at his local rail station. Finally, he was back, surrounded by the beautiful forests and peaceful nature he loved so much. At first, because of his lack of experience, Dennis was given the job of being a second driver. This meant that he had to work with a senior driver in order to learn all of the ins and outs of the job. After a few months, Dennis was deemed ready enough to take over a train as the first driver. He was assigned to drive freight trains, and he drove them all throughout Siberia. It was whilst he was driving one of these trains, though, that he came across something that would change his life forever. It had started out as a normal day for Dennis. He got up and went to his local train depot where he was assigned a freight train to drive for the day. Being the middle of winter, Dennis loved driving through the freshly fallen snow and seeing the pristine beauty of the forest as it was covered in the powdery, soft, frozen water. He was driving through a particularly remote section on his journey, an area surrounded by forests on either side, when he noticed a strange, dark object on the tracks about 2 miles in front of him. At first, Dennis couldn't make out what the object was as it was too far away, but as the train got closer to it, the driver soon discovered what was causing the obstruction. They were animals, more specifically a pack of wolves, and it didn't look like they were going to move off the tracks anytime soon. Not wanting to harm the animals, Dennis blew the train whistle, but none of the wolves moved. The driver tried it several more times, but the creatures were stubborn and refused to get off the tracks. As the train got closer, Dennis knew that he would have to make a decision. He could keep the train going and potentially run over the entire pack of wolves, or he could stop the train and try to move the pack before resuming his journey. After only a moment's hesitation, Dennis pulled the emergency stop lever and the train slowly skidded to a halt. As the wheels screeched against the tracks, Dennis could only hope that the vehicle would stop in time so as not to hurt the animals on the tracks. He closed his eyes, unable to look at what could be a tragic moment. Thankfully, though, the train came to a stop a short distance away from the pack of wolves, and Dennis let out a relieved sigh. When Dennis opened his eyes to make sure that all of the animals were okay, he noticed that they were acting rather strangely. They had all started to howl and had formed a small circle as if hiding something in the middle of it. With the train now stopped and the danger gone, the animals began to move off of the tracks and back into the forest. As they left, though, Dennis saw something that he simply couldn't believe. Lying on the tracks in what would have been the middle of the circle of wolves looked to be a person. From the train, Dennis couldn't properly make out who it was, but he knew that he couldn't simply leave them lying in the freezing cold in such a dangerous spot. Looking around for a weapon of some kind, in case any of the wolves tried to get too close, Dennis came across a poker and picked it up. He scanned the woods one last time to make sure that the animals had truly left before he ventured out of the train cabin and onto the tracks below. The driver cautiously made his way over the figure on the tracks and gasped when he came to understand what was actually happening. Lying right in front of him was a woman, and she appeared to be pregnant. Dennis rushed over the last few feet to check if the woman was still breathing. After feeling her neck for a pulse, the driver began to gently shake the woman to see if she was okay. The woman woke up groggily and looked up at the driver. Seeing that she was awake, Dennis asked her if she was okay to walk, and then he gently helped her up onto her feet. He led the freezing cold woman back to the train cabin, where he wrapped a thick blanket around her to warm her up and gave her a mug of coffee that he kept with him. Once the young woman had warmed up and was able to speak properly, Dennis asked her how she had found herself in such an awful situation. The woman explained to him that she had gone for a walk in the woods, as she had thought that they looked so beautiful with the snow. As she had been following a path, she suddenly heard a low growl behind her. She had turned to look and had seen a bear not too far away. Terrified, she had fled in any direction that she could until the bear eventually gave up and left her alone. Once she was safe though, the woman looked around and realized that she did not know the part of the woods that she had ended up in, but she did not want to follow her tracks back as the bear was in that direction. Hoping that she might find a local village, the woman had walked through the woods looking for any kind of help. Just as she was about to give up hope, the pack of wolves appeared from the woods. At first, the woman was scared that they were going to hurt her, but what they actually did shocked her. The leader of the pack approached the woman and sniffed at her belly. Seemingly understanding that she had a baby in her, the wolf turned to his pack and howled. He then started heading in one direction, looking back at the woman as if telling her to follow him. Not knowing what else to do and realizing that if she stayed out, both she and her baby could die, she began to follow the canines. They led her to these train tracks, but as she had been walking up to them to get a closer look, she had ended up tripping on a hidden rock and hitting her head on the floor, which is why Dennis had found her passed out in the middle of the tracks. After hearing the woman's story, Dennis was amazed. Without these wolves, this woman and her baby surely would have died in the cold. Dennis reassured the woman that he would get her back home safely and began to get the train up and running. As it started to move again, both Dennis and the woman noticed something in the trees. They soon realized that it was the pack of wolves and that they were watching the train as if to make sure that both Dennis and the woman made it out of the area okay. As the train picked up speed, the wolves' figures disappeared, but both Dennis and the woman would never forget how they saved 2 innocent lives that day by risking their own lives. What an amazing story! Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more awesome content.